Hey, you're watching Half Asian Tarot Queen. I'm Elisa, and I'm going to do a reading. I'm going to start with this Urban Tarot, which I did a giveaway for last month, but I kind of have cooled it a little bit on the giveaways because it was just like extra work, and I'm just kind of doing this for fun, and I'm trying to go back to work now, so anyways, it was fun, and I think everybody who entered, like, pretty much won, so we might do it again at some point in the future, but, yeah, the readings so far this month have been really intense. I mean, the overall reading for November was all about breaking free from an oppressive situation, but the reading kind of talked about how it was like moving towards a good outcome, but actually the like during part of the actually having to move through it was going to be really difficult and unpleasant. And yeah, so like the last couple readings that I've been doing have all been like all about like pushing through this kind of barrier. Like there have been quite a few readings with that, and especially around the 1111 portal, and the energies have been really intense also. So yeah, like I for one am like personally pretty frustrated with this moment and like the injustice of it, and pretty tired of like going around in this circle that like is oppressive and is just like so insanely over the top unjust that it's just like it kind of is a little mind-blowing to me, because I'm just like, you know, like when you get in those situations, it's just like, why is this happening? Like, but you know, there's obviously some sort of lesson that you're supposed to learn from it, and I feel like I've like gotten a lot of insight about that, and so I feel like it's kind of come into my awareness, particularly like in the last, like, I don't know, I feel like I had a pretty big epiphany about it yesterday, so now I'm just like, okay, like, when's this gonna shift, you know, like, I get it now, but like, there's still the, like, having to move through the energy part, you know. Okay, so at the bottom we have love. So that's interesting because we have love and we have the Lovers, and like we've got this crazy situation or whatever. But on the top row we have the Seven of Wands, which in this deck is Valor, which is interesting. We have the Lovers. We have the Moon, the Hierophant, and the Therapist. So this is really interesting because this is all a card about like having to stand your ground in the traditional deck. And, you know, it's like Valor in this deck, which kind of like implies like almost like a heroic act, or, you know, just like, you know, really having to stand your ground against some pretty harsh obstacles, you know. And then that goes right into this Lovers, which indicates a deep soulmate connection, and that's like really interesting because we also have the Two of Cups, the love card, you know. So we're like really having to stand our ground against some sort of like overwhelming obstacle, you know. And then we have the Moon, which is just like super watery and just like all this emotion, followed by the Hierophant, which, you know, it speaks to like an institution, you know, it could be like the church or like a marriage, you know, but like speaking of this like divine sort of, I don't know, blessing almost. And then we have like the Therapist, you know. So the message that I'm getting from this is there's like maybe this deep connection here that's actually being divinely guided or blessed, you know, but, and it's a really deep connection, but in order to like bring this into fruition, it's gonna require like, you're really gonna have to work for it, you know. And we also have the therapist here, which speaks to like having to like really do some internal work and like heal some maybe like deeply rooted trauma, or, you know, some sort of obstacle to the success of this. Like, you're really gonna have to like dig deep into some feelings that maybe you've been like trying to avoid your whole life, or, you know, that have been like blocking you from making a connection of this, you know, magnitude. And like, the reason is because it's gonna require a lot of work, and it's pretty intimidating, you know. So that's really interesting. And then underneath that we have the Hanged Man. We have Dominion, which this is interesting because this is an energy that's come up a lot this month, and this is like all about the sort of like oppressive situation that we're breaking free from the month, you know. And then we have Ruin and Gain, and we have Futility. So that's really interesting because, like, I think the top row speaks to having to work through this really intense situation, or like emotional trauma or blockage, in order to reach this like potentiality, which looks really awesome, you know. But on the bottom row we have Dominion, we have Ruin, and we have Futility, you know. But they're like flanked by like the Hangman and Gain, you know. So it's just like almost like, you know, like I was saying, you're gonna have to like really work on healing some sort of deep-seated trauma or like futile situation, and overcome this in order to bring this into fruition. So that's like really heavy, you know. We have this 10 of Swords, which is like, you know, kind of like the end of all suffering, but just like crazy, and just like this huge release of emotion, just like ruin, like just letting go of this immense pain, you know, which is really intense. And then we also have this Futility, the 7 of Swords, which, you know, it's like it's a deception at the heart of it, you know, like looking at things through a distorted lens, which isn't, it's like a futile situation. And that comes in right under this therapist. So it's like having to bring into awareness some sort of really wrong way of looking at things, and like release like all this pain in order to break free from this. So this is like, you know, some really hard work, you know, is what this is speaking to. So it's just like, this isn't a joke, you know, like it's not going to be easy, but there's some like really beautiful potential here. Okay, so I picked some cards from Radiant Wise Spirit, which at the bottom we got the six of Pentacles, which, you know, this typically is like a rebalancing event, you know, a rebalancing of giving and receiving. So if there's some sort of distortion in that way, like maybe there's like a relationship with like someone who's narcissistic, where things have gotten out of balance, and like you're giving way too much and not getting very much in return, you know, that could be coming back into balance. But that's kind of like the underlying energy. But then we got the 9 of Cups, the 10 of Swords, the Knight of Swords, the Chariot, and the 10 of Wands. So this is really interesting because we got 2 10s. We got the 10 of Swords and the 10 of Wands. And this really speaks to like putting down a burden and just like letting go of all the suffering that's associated with that, you know. And then it comes with like the 9 of Cups and the Chariot. So this is like a card of like wishes coming true and kind of like seizing the reins and like taking control of a situation. You know, in the middle of all of that, we have the Knight of Swords, which just speaks to like a message coming in of truth or clarity that's going to maybe usher in this, you know, because like the whole month is talking about breaking free from some sort of oppressive situation, and then this speaks to like dropping these insane burdens, you know. So it's just like maybe there's some sort of message that's coming in. It's going to allow this to come to light so that you can step into your wish and more harmonious situation where you're like kind of back in the driver's seat. And then I went to the Mystical Shaman and I picked some cards from that too. I got the Serpent, which I feel like this came out recently, but this is all about this rise of Kundalini energy, you know, which just happens. Like, I think, you know, that speaks to like being relieved from some sort of oppressive situation and just like this release of like, you know, energy, like your Kundalini energy rising and like coming into the state of empowerment, you know. And then we have the Journey, the Beloved. So we got the Lovers, the Two of Cups, and the Beloved, which I think is pretty epic. The Sweat Lodge, and then the Crow. So this really reading speaks to this profound like healing event, you know, because this is kind of analogous to the Hermit card, but it's just like going on a spiritual quest and following your own inner guidance and your own intuition, and kind of going on this path towards healing, you know. And it's just like we get the Beloved after that, you know. And it's interesting because like I was talking about having to heal some sort of really deep-seated wound, you know, or like deceptive sort of perception of reality that's been like blocking some sort of love situation, you know, might be requiring therapy, you know. And it's interesting because we got this deep love followed by the Sweat Lodge, so that's kind of like the same message, you know. It's just sort of like this is a card of healing and of sort of like going deep into the womb of Mother Earth and allowing yourself to be healed, and like you're kind of being liberated. I mean, it's really speaking to this breaking free of some sort of oppression. You're being liberated from some belief or some situation that's been holding you back, and that's like being healed so that you can like, you know, ascend. Which, you know, that's what this speaks to, as like a sort of ascension event. And then the final card we got is the Crow, which is beautiful because this is a card about sort of the truth and being in alignment with the truth. And it's a card of just sort of like co-creating, you know, and the power of being in alignment of the truth, and like just being in alignment with ultimate power and learning how to like create by like being in alignment with that. So it's just sort of like, you know, some really bad situation is around, but like the truth is gonna set someone free here, you know. There's like some sort of massive, profound healing event that's gonna happen, and it's gonna liberate someone from this situation. I mean, it's interesting that we got the Ten of Swords twice. So it's just like, this is a really harsh, horrible, unjust, unfair situation. But it looks like it's actually being healed, you know, like healing is happening. So I'm going to go to Starseed Oracle and pick a final card. This is a pretty epic, shift that's happening, and it looks like, you know, whatever this healing event is happening is also going to bring with it some sort of like profound love connection, which is a really beautiful thing, you know. So yeah, it's like, don't get too attached to outcomes. Like, focus on yourself and like healing, you know, whatever energy that is. We got activated earth, places, ley lines, trust where you're being led, you know, follow this guidance, because you're being healed, and it's gonna be a good thing. But like, this looks like a really profound, intense moment. And we got a new earth. It's happening. Keep holding the vision. So keep the faith. This is really intense, but like, it's going to a good place. And then at the bottom I got forge, don't follow. Pave a new path, be the leader that you want to be. Be the change. Okay, my mom's calling, so good luck. Check in soon.